Okay, Josh, so we're talking a little bit about the implementation. So just to start the conversation, like what does this mean to you and why is it important?
So, um, in my career as a school leader, I would often want to make changes that I hoped would improve things for teachers and students. But then when I actually tried to find the time and space for teachers to do these new things, I wouldn't be able to. Or what would happen was I'd give teachers one more thing to do to add to their already very busy list of things to do. And so they would either be worse at something else important, or the thing I want them to do differently maybe would work for a bit and then would stop working because I'm always asking for more. And so I think the challenge as a leader, as a school leader, is we want teachers to improve, but if we frame the improvements as you always need to add new things, then ultimately teachers won't be able to make the improvements. And so instead, I learned to focus rather than on implementing something new, on de-implementing, taking away something that was not very effective and replacing that thing with something new. So that's what we mean by de-implementation.
Yeah. And so what would be an example of something that you took off the plates from teachers that you de-implemented and why did you pick that area?
Sure. So yeah, so it's worth before you do de-implementation, it's really worth doing some evidence gathering. So it really helps to just look at what teachers are doing with their days and do a kind of little bit of a study on what teachers spend their time on and whether those things actually add impact. And what we found at my school was that teachers were spending lots and lots of time marking books. And by marking books, I mean reading the entire of a student piece of work and then writing long comments for students about how to improve. And it would take teachers sometimes, it would take me sometimes 3 hours for a one class's set of books to mark them all. And I wanted teachers to be spending time in each other's lessons. I wanted teachers to be spending time coaching each other. But if they were using all of their free periods to sit and mark books, maybe that was a good candidate for something that we could remove. Now, we only want to remove things if they don't work well, and so I think it was really important to look at the evidence on that kind of marking. Does it really help students to improve? And the evidence is that that kind of marking doesn't really have very much of an impact. So it's kind of fits the perfect space on. It takes lots of time on the graph, the time graph, but on the impact graph, the impact is very low. So it's high time, low impact. And so that is a good candidate. Now, so that's kind of why I picked that. Sorry, Arthur, just to finish that thought off.
Yeah. So can I just ask, so just to clarify, because it might be surprising to some people when you say it takes a lot of time, but it doesn't have that much impact. What's your understanding of that evidence? Like, why doesn't it have the impact on student learning that sometimes we feel it might have?
Okay, so there's good evidence about feedback that the feedback that works in terms of students changing something is timely. What that means is it's as close as possible to the error. Now, so like as in I see a student making an error in class, I say, you've made an error, fix the error, and they fix the error. And so feedback that's timely in that way has really good evidence. It's actually like about the most impactful thing that we can do. I take my class a set of books. Okay. So that's the lesson is over. So they've forgotten what they were thinking about anyway. Right. So, and then it takes me 3 days to mark them. I give them back. So it could be a week. And then students have to respond to that feedback in a way that students have to learn. They have to read my comment. They have to think back to what happened in the lesson. It's just we're adding a lot of reasons why that feedback is not going to work. Whereas when I walk up to a student and say, this is a mistake, change this, there are a lot of reasons why that feedback is going to work. So I think that's what kind of that's that's where the evidence base I would rely on.
Yeah. And how did you go about convincing teachers that this would be a good change? Because if some of them, like if they're used to spending a lot of time providing, reading the work and providing the feedback, they think, there's good reasons for doing it. So how did you convince them to do it, to do
Yeah.
less of it?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So I think there are three factors that I had to rely on. The first of which is to make an argument about time.
Hmm.
So time is extremely motivating for teachers. If you're like, guys, I don't want you to do this thing which is taking you 5 plus a week anymore. For some teachers, that is going to be enough of an argument. What you're saying that I can use my time to do something else. Now, so that was it. Firstly, just making the case for like a time saving really explicit. The second thing is actually to share information about impact. Some teachers love marking books. I'm always surprised because I hated it, but some teachers love it. And for those teachers, the time's not enough. They want to spend their time doing that. So then you need to be like, and it doesn't work very well. And I'm sharing ideas and research about that kind of feedback not working. And then I think with something as important as feedback to students, the third thing is to find a better solution. And so some things you can just remove because they're just not good. But actually, if we remove feedback completely, some feedback is important, right?
Yeah.
So the other thing is to find solutions which are more impactful. And so the solution which I worked with staff on is immediate feedback in the lesson. And so we did that in two ways. We did that one by working with staff on circulating. So when students are completing some silent, long practice, work with teachers on going around and visiting students and being like, there's an error, fix the error. And then the second thing we worked on was kind of whole class feedback solutions, like something like a mini whiteboard where students are given a question and they hold up an answer, and then the teacher says, that's a mistake, that's a mistake, that's a mistake. So I replaced something which wasn't effective and which took ages with something
Hmm.
that is effective and can happen in the lesson and doesn't take up any additional time.
Yeah. So maybe to sort of round this up, like the final question, what did you notice or did you evaluate the impact of this change? So when you did this de-implementation, you asked teachers to spend less time providing written feedback. What was the impact of that change overall? Did you look at that?
Yes, we did. So we measured impacts in a few different ways. The first of which is we just spoke with teachers about their time. So
Mhm.
previously, teachers had reported that they were not having enough time to get into each other's lessons. And after we implemented this or de-implemented this
Yeah,
change,
yeah,
teachers reported having lots more time to get into each other's lessons and complete their coaching. And we obviously checked that against some data we had on whether coaching was being completed in school. So that's the
yeah.
first thing. The second is actually we looked at student books. So we would complete myself and my leadership team would complete student work checks, which is where we look at a set of books for a class and we look at, for example, whether students are responding to feedback in their books. And previously we would see lots of teacher comment and very little student writing after the comment.
Mhm.
And we moved to a system where teachers would make marks in student books in the lesson. So
Mhm.
here's a mistake, fix it here. And we found that we were seeing significantly more student responses to teacher feedback with this new system. We were able to actually measure that we saw improved amounts of student comment in their books, which we saw as a sign that students were responding to feedback more effectively.
Yeah. Fantastic. Is there anything else that we should know about this example? It sounds like a really nice example of de-implementation that had a very positive impact. Is there anything else you wanted to mention?
Um, I think the thing to say just is like there are lots of things that teachers do which we call like hornets.
Hmm.
They are painful for teachers and
Hmm.
ultimately not very good for students. Okay.
Hmm.
And I think it's worth doing a big search for these things in school. Like lots of written teacher feedback is one example, but there are lots of other examples. And when you find those things, they're the perfect candidates for to de-implement. If it takes teachers a long time and it doesn't benefit students very much, there'll be no reason to do it anymore. And so those are the things which we can chop out.